Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC show. I am Paul, and this is my lovely wife, Amy.
Hello.
And we are again coming to you from our home this week. Again, between hurricanes, we've got Thanksgiving, Christmas, all kinds of things going on right now. It's just been sort of a little bit hard getting everyone in the same time and place in the studio, but we hope to get back in there soon. But we didn't want to leave you hanging with no content, and so we've been filming some shows here. We may do some more. We may bring some friends on board. Odie and Hermes, our dogs, are here today, so they're in the studio with us as well. But we thought today it would be fun to talk a little bit about, not necessarily fun, but talk about the experience of maybe riding out a hurricane at Walt Disney World.
Fun. It can be fun, but I don't think that's the optimum word there.
Yeah, okay, no. But, we've had two storm systems blow through here in very short succession in Florida. We had Hurricane Ian that came at us here around the beginning of October, I think it was. And then we had Hurricane Nicole come in about a month later. And, both coasts got hit a little bit. And so I thought it was important that we sort of visit this topic. We've gotten a lot of questions, a lot of requests from people to just sort of discuss, what's it like riding out a hurricane in Florida? What's it like riding out a hurricane at Walt Disney World? And most importantly, what are maybe some of the best and worst resorts to get stuck at if you are here for a storm? So we'll get into all of that. But first and foremost, just wanted to give a shout out to our sponsors over at the World of DVC. If you are looking for anything Disney Vacation Club related, World of DVC is the place for it. DVC Resale Market, that is where you can buy or sell a Disney Vacation Club contract. Monera Financial is going to be able to help you finance that purchase of a contract with some amazing rates. And then DVC Rental Store, where if you're looking to try before you buy and get a wonderful discount on a Disney Vacation Club villa, or if you're looking to get some extra money in your pocket, maybe before the holidays or here around the first of the year to help pay for those annual dues, you can rent out your Disney Vacation Club points that you're not going to use. So please pay our sponsors a visit, and let's talk about hurricanes in Florida.
And just real quick, you were just talking about rental store. We actually finally rented our points out for the first time
I don't want to talk about
it. We always said we'd be using them all, but we decided we wanted to go on an Alaskan cruise for our 10-year anniversary, which is coming up next year. And we rented some Grand Cal points, and it was so easy. And
even
it's tempting. I want more points to rent, but yeah, we're gonna be using probably the rest of our points.
It was super easy, and honestly, Grand California reservation, it went very quickly. Amy jumped on, grabbed a good, reservation that we could list as a confirmed reservation with DVC Rental Store. Got that listed, and it did sell very quickly. It is always. It pulls at the heartstrings when you're changing the names over and stuff like that. But, in our situation, we're putting that money towards something that we also want to do.
I was okay with it because we were just there and we knew we couldn't make it and use those points, within the next year. So,
we are still going to go out to Disneyland next year, but we're not going to use our Grand Cal points for that. We're probably going to use some other points and hopefully get into the new DVC tower at the Disneyland Hotel so that we can show you guys all the exciting stuff that is at that new resort. So
sorry, I got you off topic.
That's okay. That's okay. That's what we're here for. So we're talking hurricanes today, and first and foremost, we've gotten a lot of questions from people. This was our first hurricane season riding the storms out in Florida.
Yeah,
and
we were here last year.
We were here last year, but no real hurricane experiences. But boy, we got double whammy this year, and it was quite a fun time. So and actually we had just jumped off. So just sort of leading into Hurricane Ian, we had just jumped off the Disney Wish. We had done our first sailing on the Disney Wish. We literally got home that night and there were words of a hurricane. And I was just kind of like, man, it's not going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. You, on the other hand, were taking a little bit more serious, and we ended up at Walmart at 11 p.m. Getting hurricane supplies to beat the rush before everyone sort of went and did the same thing the next day.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I was a little concerned. We were in, we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but we were in Florida during Hurricane Dorian, and we were at Disney, and we we're lucky because that hurricane actually, ended up going up the coast and never hit us. So we got to experience what Disney was like preparing and closing down and getting ready for a hurricane, but we didn't really get to experience the actual weather event, which is fine. But this year, we got to experience the actual weather event. We did choose to stay home, obviously, with our dogs, and I was a little bit worried. I thought maybe the roof was gonna blow off our house. I didn't know what to expect, so
I was completely calm as a cucumber, just like, it's going to be fine. We've got enough stuff. We're not going to lose power. It's going to be a great evening. And, we started out into the evening there. It was great. We were watching, we binge watch Big Bang Theory on TV. So we were doing sort of our normal evening plans. And then the window started shaking.
Yeah, and I didn't think it was that bad. It was nowhere near what I had expected, so it was a great night for me. I thought, okay, this is okay, we're fine. And Paul was beside himself.
It was some of the most bone-chilling noises I have ever heard. I was convinced that one of the windows were going to break. We will definitely board up our windows if another Category 4 storm comes through. At least we agree on that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, the noises were a bit unnerving. We sort of hunkered down. We made what I called mega bed in the hallway, and curled up with the dogs and just sort of put ourselves in a safe place in the house. Watched our neighbors try to drive around in the storm in the middle of 100-mile-an-hour winds. Highly don't recommend doing that. But all in all, for our first time here in Florida, definitely experienced. We definitely got the full hurricane treatment, but luckily came away with not any significant damage.
Very minimal fencing, and I think
lost power for 2 days.
Yeah, power for 2 days. That's not
gave us an excuse to clean out the refrigerator. So which is always needed. But we definitely feel extremely blessed for everything that we went through, and just coming out with a little bit of minor damage. We know that there are a lot of people that faced far severe consequences due to Hurricane Ian and also Hurricane Nicole when they came through. We did post in DVC Fan, our thoughts went out to Juan Carlos and Catherine, who are members of our group. They had a significant impact, had major flooding actually in the Orlando area. This storm really hit Orlando very hard.
Yes.
A lot of rain,
a lot of flooding.
very quickly, a lot of flooding. And so, our thoughts go out to, anyone that is out there that was impacted by those storms, because you should always take them seriously, no matter how small of a storm they are, because you just don't know what's going to happen in the end. But let's turn it a little happier, I guess, and talk about, what it's like riding out a storm at Walt Disney World. And I think the best place to start for us is we actually had experience with this about 3 years ago. We were down here on supposed to be a very short trip, about 3 nights or something like that, to come down, experience Food and Wine Festival, be here for the Halloween season. And we ended up turning that into 6 nights because Hurricane Dorian had other plans for us. And so I think it's a lesson in, especially if you're traveling during hurricane season, either always have a plan in place in terms of, what if this happens, or also it's a wonderful lesson in terms of travel insurance as well. Something that you should always consider, whether you're renting points, whatever situation you are in, there are unknowns that are going to occur that are going to impact your trip. So it's important to plan for those things. If COVID didn't teach us that, I don't know what would, but,
so things are different, a little different now from how Disney handled them back when we were there in 2019.
Yep.
There are some similar things. For example, the food options I thought were very similar. They had reduced price buffets when we were staying at Boardwalk during Dorian, and they did have some of that going on this year. They had like buffets. I heard there was something at Citrico's where you could go and get food and in different places around different resorts. But one of the things that did kind of change was the availability and the ease of getting a reservation, extending your stay. We were able the day of to go to the front desk at Boardwalk and extend our stay by 3 nights. And that hasn't been quite as easy now. There've been some restrictions on that. So that's just something to keep in mind, because if you know a hurricane is coming, you can try, you can get your stay extended as soon as possible before they start minimizing those abilities. That's something I would definitely keep in mind.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot different this time around, especially with Hurricane Ian. Nicole, not much really happened down here in terms of, Disney deciding to close resorts or things like that. They did close the parks for basically a half a day, but that doesn't the big thing are the resorts and what are going to happen at the resorts. And typically their protocol is that if a storm becomes bad enough, they'll basically isolate a time in which you must have checked in by, and then they will lock down the resort. And nobody will be able to come in the front door, go out the front door, basically are confined to that resort for that period of time. And that's for your safety, but even more importantly, that is for the cast members' safety, because the cast members that are there during that period of time are riding the storm out with you. We actually talked to one at Boardwalk when we were here for Dorian, and basically what they do is they basically tell them up front that, you're coming in for this shift, but you are basically here until the storm passes through. We're going to put you in one of the rooms of the resort. So they do sort of put them up in the accommodations there normally, but they're on call 24/7 at that point, and they're there to help you have an enjoyable experience. Some of the entertainment and stuff that they do is above and beyond to just make you feel comfortable in that resort during that period of time. But I think, to your point, the surprising thing for me here was the lack of planning and the lack of preparation from Disney and Disney Vacation Club in terms of how to implement those plans. Full disclosure, obviously I work with DVC Rental Store. I'm a member relations manager there. And so obviously we had a lot of people that were impacted by these storms. And for us, we have to maneuver within what Disney is doing. And Disney was not providing any leniency in terms of making things easier on the guests. Basically, they were saying, well, if you're scheduled to check in during this time, we can't do anything for you. Even if they were already at another resort and it was just as easy as just saying, okay, you stay there for an extra day instead of moving to this other resort. And I don't think it was an issue of like, we don't have the room available or stuff like that.
No, because in a lot of cases they were offering them for cash.
Yeah.
Still. Yeah, we were a little disappointed in that and how that was handled. And I hope that they can take, those experiences and those guests, the feedback that they got from some members about that and make changes, next time that this happens.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I really just have to chalk that up to potentially just mid-level management. And, that's a lot of the staffing that never came back after the pandemic. And so those people that had that operating playbook, that knew that thing like the back of their hand, those are the people that weren't there anymore and weren't in place to sort of, run the show in this situation. Yeah. And so we've been through one. Hopefully we learn from the experience and it gets better for the future. But, all that being said, Disney is actually the safest place probably in Florida to ride out a hurricane.
Yeah, it's a great place to be, and there's multiple reasons. Obviously, those buildings are built to withstand, hurricane force winds. I can't even think of a time when Disney lost power during a hurricane. Hurricane Matthew, the one that we just had, Ian. Disney has never lost power, so all the guests there, they have power, they have a hot shower, they have ability to heat food up, and the other thing is that they just, once you're there and you're a guest, the cast members take such good care of you, and there's activities and characters that come out, and they entertain you, and they have things going on in the lobbies, and so it is a great place to be if you have to be down there, if you have to be down here during a hurricane and you don't live around here, that's a great place. And it used to be that, and it still is to a degree if you can get availability ahead of time, but it used to be that Disney was a place that locals went, they
Mm-hmm.
evacuated to, those who were on the coast or those who were in places where they shouldn't be staying, that they would come to Disney and stay because it was a safe place. And they would bring their dogs. Disney would always lift the pet ban. I did not see any official word of them doing that this year. I know that I did talk to members who saw pets in the resorts that normally wouldn't be there. So I think it still happened, but there was no official word like there had been in the past, or like Universal did. Universal did lift their pet ban. So that's just some things to consider. Like it is, if you got to be somewhere, that's the place.
Might as well be at Disney.
Yeah, it's a good place to be. So with that said, we looked at the DVC resorts because this was actually a requested topic that we kind of reviewed. What are the best DVC resorts to be at if you're going to be down here during a hurricane? And so I kind of rank them. I don't know that we have enough time to go on the top. We can go kind of quick, but and just I just kind of sat down and gave my own ranking of what I thought and why.
I have no clue what these rankings are, by the way, so I'm just gonna randomly guess some of them, and we'll see how well I do. How about that?
All right, so at the bottom of the list,
Ooh.
And there's no bad resort. We love all the DVC resorts. We're just ranking these based on there was a couple things that I looked at. First was the actual the accommodations, right? Does it have interior hallways, exterior hallways? How far is it from food? And then I looked at all of the list of all the food items, the food options and places that were open during Ian, and there's some resorts that I was surprised they had closed down a lot, while other DVC resorts had a lot more open. Yeah, so I used that also to kind of rank because that seems to be kind of important food. So what do you think is on the bottom?
I would have to guess at the bottom of the barrel is probably going to be like Saratoga and Old Key West. When you start to think about what kind of situation do you want? And again, I've heard some of the stuff of what's occurred at some of these other resorts, like Topolino's having a $15 buffet. That's just insanity. Yeah. Granted, it's probably not, a buffet of fillets and amazing truffle pasta and all kinds of stuff like that, but still probably amazing. But the thing
better than the cold beefaroni we ate that first day after the hurricane.
That was absolutely, you get pretty desperate when you lose your power. Cold beefaroni was the way to go. And
okay, so I put Old Key West at the bottom, and obviously it's very spread out and sprawling resort. There were not a lot of food options open during Egan, and there's no interior hallways. There's not even exterior hallways like Saratoga has. So basically the wind is knocking at your front door. We love Saratoga.
Literally.
Or not Saratoga. Okay, we love Old Key West. We cannot wait to stay there, next month. But, that would probably be my last choice, during a hurricane. And then Saratoga.
Wait, did they do the bag lunch situation again this time?
I don't know.
I didn't. Previously, I think back in Dorian,
they did.
It was it was literally like there was a message on your phone or something where it was like, come pick up your bagged lunches for the next 2 days and then hunker down in your room. Yeah. It doesn't sound as good as Topolino's $15 buffet. I'm sorry.
So Saratoga was next for similar reasons, why it's towards the bottom. It's a big sprawling resort. You are likely going to be kind of far from the lobby where you would go to get food. But at the same time, there's this interim period where you're getting ready for the hurricane and some things are still open. And, at Old Key West, and transportation is very busy because everyone's kind of scrambling, getting food, for the next possible couple of days. So at least at Saratoga, I can walk over to Earl Sandwich and load up on my holiday turkey sandwiches.
I'm paying attention, but I'm also trying to think ahead of what the next one's gonna be. My head is only going to Bay Lake Tower right now, and it's only because of a recent event that we've had there. And this is probably not where you're headed, but we went for the Top of the World Lounge Villains Lair preview. And we actually met up. We met up with Nate. We're paging Mr. Morrow, as you guys know him, probably. And we were stuck on the little Skyway Bridge between the Contemporary and Bay Lake Tower, and it was just torrential sideways rain. And
It was rough.
I
Yeah.
don't know that I would, because of that, I feel like Bay Lake Tower would be pretty far down
I
my
feel like
list.
you would have to army crawl to get across it. It was bad. I didn't, I kind of thought about that, but it's more towards the top, and I'll explain why, but that's a
Okay.
valid point.
Okay.
Okay, so Grand Floridian I put in the next spot, and the reason that was because based on the information that came out about what restaurants were open, Grand Floridian actually had nothing open except they were serving like at Citrico's they were doing like the buffet type thing, but other than that there were no options. Like none of the quick service would open like it was at other resorts.
No Victoria and Albert.
Yeah, how dare them not have Victoria's open. But it had Grand Floridian had the least amount of food open, which I was really surprised. However, the other thing is that, they're both exterior buildings, the DVC buildings.
Yep.
The one, the newest one, the Big Pine Key,
yep.
is not covered. It is kind of close to the lobby though. And then, yes, there's a covered walkway to the original villas, but if it's raining sideways, that walkway is not going to help you.
Yeah.
So that's why I put Grand Floridian there, mostly because of the food choices, but also because of the exterior buildings. Polynesian is next.
Makes sense. Similar story.
Very similar, but they did have more food options available. There was actually a lot of food options available at the Polynesian that were still open, and that's why I put it ahead of the Grand Floridian. Obviously, there's still exterior buildings, so if you're stuck inside, you're stuck far away from the lobby. So if they're having fun stuff going on and it's bad out, you're probably not going to get to them. And the other thing is that it is more towards the top, obviously, than like Old Key West and Saratoga, because the interior hallways are nice. It's nice that the wind is not knocking on your front door.
And I assume, with that level of thinking, Beach Club probably falls into that same category. Yeah. Boardwalk probably very similar category. Boardwalk they will, I think, take you through some backstage areas to get down to their convention center area at Boardwalk. That was our experience when we were there for Dorian. And so probably a little bit better there, but it's sort of a similar theme where it's like, you got to go out of your building to get into the other building. And then what are the dining options?
So Beach Club I put as number 7. And that was also because, it is a separate building. So you do have to exit and go outside, to get to the lobby. But at the same time, it's not that far. And you also, once you're in the lobby, you've got Yacht Club really close. And there were a decent amount of dining options between those two. You do have to go outside to get to Yacht Club a little bit, but it's mostly, really close to the building and covered. And let's see, Bay Lake Tower is number 6. But I forgot about that. You're trying to walk across that sky bridge.
It's either the sky bridge or you just fully go out in the elements.
Yeah,
I would probably do the latter. I would probably go down to the ground floor and just head over that way, because that sky bridge, I feel like I'd just be like,
yeah.
Now
the one thing that I do like is that it is the bridge is above the ground. So I guess I was thinking like if there's like flooding waters, which there probably won't be.
That's got to be a tremendous flood.
Okay.
That is.
Never mind. Maybe Bay Lake Tower was misplaced, but you are close to the Contemporary. There's a lot of options there. The downside is there's no food in that building, but neither is there food inside of any of the longhouses, at the Poly or Grand Floridian. So, so Bay Lake, Beach Club, Bay Lake, Poly, Grand Floridian, they're kind of all similar in terms of, which one is better. They're very close. Number 5, I put Boulder Ridge, and I feel like Boulder Ridge's covered walkway is more substantial than walking across the sky bridge at Bay Lake, or not having one at all, or you know what I mean. Like it's pretty wide, it's very well covered, and it's not a far distance to go from Boulder Ridge to the main lodge.
Unless that flood comes.
the Noah's Ark flood.
The Noah's Ark of flooding.
So that's why I put Boulder Ridge as the 5th option, the 5th best option. Coming in at number 4, I chose Boardwalk, and I know Boardwalk doesn't have restaurants that are inside, the lobby, but the lobby is connected. there are a lot of long hallways in the boardwalk. So if you're like feeling cooped up inside your room, you can just like, you can go for a jog in your hall maybe.
If you're here for the next hurricane and you see Amy Krieger doing laps through the boardwalk hallway,
I would like, I like, I don't want to just be cooped up in my room. And so at least, at the boardwalk, I would have, this is like the first one where I could just exit my room and go for like a hallway jog.
For us, we did have an amazing experience there too when we did ride out the hurricane. And the stories that we hear, they bring in characters and they're hanging out in the lobby and there's games and all kinds of just cool stuff that's going on.
And like you said, they feed people at Boardwalk in the convention center. Yep. And even though when we were there, because Dorian didn't actually come, we could go outside and walk down to the convention center. They actually have a way to get people into the convention center without them having to go outside if the weather were that bad. They have, like backstage access, to go through the building because it's all connected technically. Yep. So that's why I chose Boardwalk, in such a high one. And like Paul said, we were there and we actually had a really good experience.
Top three,
Riviera.
Okay.
Obviously we got that Topolino's $15 buffet. Can't beat that with a stick.
Nope.
By the way, when we did Boardwalk, it was similar. The pricing was similar. Remember, it was $10 for breakfast and $15 for dinner.
Yeah, they make it incredibly reasonable. Yeah. It's not the same type of food. They're mass producing. For breakfast, eggs, potatoes.
Food at Disney that is that cheap tastes very good.
It does. You're happy no matter what, especially if you're in that atmosphere where you've dropped.
And it was all you can eat.
If you've dropped $200 in that restaurant before, you're like, this feels great. I'm getting all my money back right now. I'm just gonna keep eating.
Yeah, but, I really enjoyed those buffets actually. But obviously, like Riviera is a large resort. Mm-hmm. It's all inside, so you can access the lobby. You can access, the restaurants and if they're open, and you have hallways to jog in, if you need to.
The only negative I heard that Primo Piatto, it definitely had huge lines and huge waits ahead of the storm, especially the night that they were beginning to shut things down. It was like, by 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., mobile order was closed for the day.
Yeah, so if you don't plan ahead, it can be a challenge, regardless. So maybe we need to stay at Saratoga so we can walk over to a roll of sandwich or something.
Yeah.
Okay, but so Riviera I thought was worthy of the number 3 spot. The reason I didn't put it in the top 2 was because the lobby is very small. So if you have everyone that is staying there, coming into those smaller spaces to kind of hang out and do activities that they have going on, they're not as big, they're not as grand, and there's just not as much space.
And Riviera is it's a small footprint, it's a big resort, so that's a lot of people in all of those common areas, so I get that. So probably see where you're going with these top 2.
What do you think for number 2? I don't know if we're gonna agree. I think they're interchangeable, but there's one thing that like really changes them, but it depends on your situation.
So there's 3 resorts that I'm thinking of, and I think the one is the changing point. So I'm gonna probably put Wilderness Lodge, like Copper Creek, as my number 1.
Okay.
And that's just because it's all enclosed within that area. You've got that big lobby. You've got multiple different dining locations available to you within that area. So it checks all of those boxes of just having a lot of space for you to do laps and a lot of eating opportunities as well.
Yes, a lot of food was open, a lot of lobby space for activities. What's good about those resorts is not only do you have so much space in the lobby, but they're multi-story. So if the lobby's crowded but you want to watch and people watch what's going on, you can hang out on a different level. But I put Copper Creek as number 2. And the reason I picked Animal Kingdom Lodge as number 1, especially for like locals or those who drive, is you have a parking garage underneath Kidani Village.
I forgot about the parking garage.
So it would be my choice. So the parking garage is pretty big, and even if you stay at Jumbo House, you can technically park at Kidani, and then you could just like walk over or take the shuttle, because not everyone, a lot of people fly. So what I would do, my absolute top choice as a person who has a car that's here, is I would park at Kidani Village and I would stay at Jumbo House. I like how big Jumbo House is. I love the grand lobby. And there was a decent amount of restaurants open and options for eating. But then you can protect your car from the elements.
Yeah,
So.
and I know that they're over on dvcfan.com. There's a wonderful blog that one of our contributors, Mark, wrote actually back during Dorian, and he was staying at Animal Kingdom Lodge, and just amazing stories again from the food, from the cast member service to the character interactions are just next level at that point because I think everyone's just sort of happy to be at Disney and happy they're safe and just having a good time all the way around. So
yeah,
I can definitely see. I think those two are pretty interchangeable, whether it be Wilderness Lodge or Animal Kingdom Lodge. You're gonna have a okay storm time at either of those locations. All in all, again, hurricanes, nothing to joke about. It's always something that there's a lot of maneuvering that has to go on once you plan to actually come down here for that trip. But I don't think if we were still living in Pittsburgh, in the Wheeling area, like I don't know that we would ever necessarily shy away from coming during a hurricane, just knowing the things that we know, but just because we are DVC members and we do enjoy just going to the resorts as much as we do the parks. So, obviously, given the circumstances, it would be something where if it's going to be really bad, we would probably avoid that trip. But we've been down here for a hurricane. We've now ridden 2 hurricanes out as Florida residents, and Walt Disney World does it the best of the best in terms of how they handle the storm. So
yeah.
Anything else in terms of hurricanes down here?
No, I think that covers it. I think you can't go wrong with any DVC resort. And obviously, if you're coming down and there's a hurricane, just make sure you're well planned and you have plans established for if you have to stay longer.
Yep.
So just always be thinking ahead.
Well, I think that's going to do it for us with this episode of the DVC show. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did like this show, please give it a big thumbs up. Please subscribe to the DVC Fan YouTube channel so that you can see all of the shows that we'll be putting out in the coming weeks, months ahead. And until next time, we will see you all later.